A vengeful spirit, a tormented family, a haunting so terrifying that it became one of the most documented supernatural events in American history. In the year 1817, a peaceful family living in the small town of Adams, Tennessee, became the target of something beyond human understanding. What began as soft knocks in the night soon turned into relentless torment, whispers that carried through empty rooms, unseen hands that pulled hair and slapped faces, and an invisible force that knew their deepest fears. The Bell family was not just haunted, they were hunted. But this was not just another ghost story. This was a supernatural entity with intelligence, one that could speak, mimic voices, and even hold conversations. It could predict the future with eerie accuracy and, most disturbingly, it made a chilling promise. It would kill. How does a ghost speak? How does an unseen force gain so much power? And how did the haunting of one family become a tale of terror that still haunts the world today? This is the true, terrifying story of the Bell Witch haunting. The nightmare began with something that seemed harmless, something John Bell, the head of the Bell family, brushed off as a trick of the light. One evening in 1817, while inspecting his farmland, John Bell noticed something lurking in the distance. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary animal, but as he stepped closer, his blood ran cold. The creature had the body of a dog, but the head of a rabbit, its eyes glowing unnaturally in the fading sunlight. Before he could react, the creature vanished into thin air. Shaken but unwilling to give in to fear, John dismissed the sighting. He did not yet know that this was only the beginning. Shortly after John's eerie encounter, strange noises began to plague the Bell household. At first, it was just faint tapping on the walls, almost like someone knocking, yet there was no one outside. As days passed, the knocking turned into pounding, growing louder and more aggressive each night. Then came the whispers, soft, unintelligible murmurs that slithered through the halls like a chilling breeze. The family would wake up to the sound of heavy chains dragging across the wooden floors, as if something unseen was moving through their home. But each time they searched, they found nothing. Fear tightened its grip on the household. The Bell children huddled together at night, their small bodies trembling under the blankets, praying for the noises to stop. But the entity had only just begun. Of all the Bell family members, no one suffered more than Betsy Bell, John Bell's young daughter. What started as invisible hands pulling her hair soon escalated into something much darker. She would wake up gasping for breath, her body covered in bruises, her skin burning from unseen slaps. The force behind the attacks was inhuman. Her head would snap to the side as if struck by an iron hand, and red welts would appear on her face and arms. Sometimes she would feel a force gripping her throat, choking her as if trying to squeeze the life out of her. Her piercing screams echoed through the house at night, but no one, not even her father, could stop it. The family was powerless against an enemy they could not see. Then, one night, the whispers grew louder. At first, it was just gibberish, a collection of fragmented words and laughter. But then, the voice became clear. "I am Kate." The entity had a name. It called itself Kate Batts, claiming to be the spirit of a woman who had been wronged by John Bell. It spoke with intelligence and hatred, taunting the family and revealing secrets that no one else could have known. The Bell family was no longer dealing with a simple haunting. This was something far more powerful, a spirit that could think, speak, and worst of all, seek revenge. And it had made its intentions terrifyingly clear. It wanted John Bell dead. As the haunting continued, the Bell family became desperate for help. They weren't the only ones to witness the horrors. The entity's reach extended beyond the walls of their home, drawing in local witnesses, and even some famous figures who came to see the supernatural occurrences for themselves. News of the Bell Witch's terrifying activities spread throughout the region, piquing the interest of curious locals, skeptics, and even those eager to test their courage against an unseen force. Among them was none other than Andrew Jackson, the future president of the United States, who had heard the rumors and was determined to confront the witch himself. Jackson, with a reputation as a tough and fearless leader, assembled a small party and set off for the Bell farm. Upon arriving, they were confident they could handle whatever the witch threw at them. But what happened next would shake them to their core. The moment they stepped onto the Bell property, they experienced an unseen force holding them in place, unable to move or speak. The wagon wheels refused to turn, and the horses became suddenly paralyzed. The group, heard strange voices echoing in the air, and the men grew pale with fear. It was said that Andrew Jackson himself was left speechless, his bravado replaced with terror. He would later declare, "I would rather face 100 battles than go through that again." Local townspeople began to speculate that the witch's power had no limits. Some claimed it could control the minds of those who entered, while others whispered that the witch had conquered the very land itself, binding all who crossed it to its will. As the months wore on, the Bell Witch's activities grew increasingly bizarre, and its powers became more pronounced. The spirit began to recite sermons, speaking in a deep, chilling voice as if it were a preacher from another time. The witch's words were often laced with mockery, turning holy rituals into something grotesque, twisting sacred words into curses. More disturbingly, the entity began to mimic voices, first imitating the Bell family's loved ones, then even replicating the voices of distant friends and family members. The witch seemed to take pleasure in creating confusion, speaking in the voices of people long gone, speaking to them as if they were still alive. It was as if the witch could reach into their past, pulling fragments of their memories to torment them. Even more unnerving, the Bell Witch exhibited an ability to predict the future. It foretold the deaths of loved ones, the events of the coming days, and even natural disasters. The witch's predictions were eerily accurate, and the Bell family could do nothing to stop it. They felt as if the witch could see into the very fabric of time itself, bending it to its will. No one was safe from its knowledge, no matter how far in the future the event seemed. The attacks on Betsy Bell continued to worsen, escalating to such a degree that it became impossible for her to lead a normal life. Her once vibrant spirit was now crushed under the weight of the entity's constant abuse. She was pulled from her bed every night, her body bruised, her skin burned from the invisible hands that assaulted her. No matter where she went, the witch was there, its presence like a heavy shadow that loomed over her every step. One of the most heartbreaking moments of the haunting came when Betsy became engaged to a local boy named Joshua Gardner. It was a moment of joy for the young couple, but the witch would not allow it. The spirit made it clear that Betsy was not allowed to marry Joshua. As the attacks grew worse, Betsy's engagement was torn apart. She was haunted day and night by the witch's voice, which would curse and threaten her if she didn't break off the engagement. It wasn't just the physical assaults that tormented her. It was the mental manipulation, the constant threats, and the overwhelming sense of despair. The witch seemed to take sadistic pleasure in destroying her happiness. In the end, Betsy did as the witch demanded. She broke off her engagement, leaving Joshua heartbroken and confused. But it wasn't just her love life that had been shattered. It was her entire sense of self. Betsy had lost everything, and it was clear that the Bell Witch had no intention of letting her live in peace. As the attacks reached new heights, it was clear that the Bell Witch was not just a ghost. It was a force of pure malice, with the power to break hearts, minds, and lives. The Bell family had entered a living nightmare, and no one knew when or if it would ever end. As the torment on the Bell family escalated, the entity's actions grew even more terrifying. The Bell Witch, which had already proved itself capable of physical, mental, and emotional manipulation, now set its sights on the ultimate prize, John Bell himself. The witch's motives were becoming clearer, and it was no longer content with merely tormenting the Bell family. It made a chilling promise. It would kill John Bell. The spirit declared it plainly. John would die, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. At first, John Bell dismissed the threat as another cruel taunt. But soon, the spirit's words began to take on an ominous weight. It wasn't just whispers in the night anymore. John's health, once strong and steady, began to deteriorate rapidly. He developed a mysterious illness, one that defied every medical explanation of the time. His body grew weak, his face pale, and he suffered from intense, unexplained pain. The attacks from the witch grew more focused, with the entity claiming responsibility for every moment of agony he endured. The witch had promised John's death, and it seemed to be fulfilling its prophecy with terrifying precision. By 1820, John Bell's condition had worsened to the point where he could no longer function. He was bedridden, his body racked with pain, his mind clouded by the constant presence of the witch's power. It was as if the witch was draining the life out of him, one moment at a time. On a fateful night, after weeks of suffering, John Bell passed away. He was found lifeless in his bed, his face frozen in an expression of terror and pain. But what was even more chilling was what lay beside him, a small vial of unknown liquid. The substance, which had no explanation, seemed to be the cause of his death. No one knew where it came from or how it had appeared, but the witch was quick to claim responsibility. The entity declared that the mysterious substance had been given to John by the witch, a poison of sorts, one that had slowly eaten away at his health, eventually leading to his death. The Bell Witch's promise had been fulfilled. John Bell was dead, and the entity stood victorious, but its power was not yet finished. In the wake of John Bell's death, the family had hoped for some peace, but the witch was far from done. In the days following his passing, the entity's voice returned, this time with a mocking tone. The witch laughed, a sinister, haunting sound, echoing through the Bell house and across the land. It sang strange, eerie songs, its voice echoing in the ears of the grieving family members. The witch seemed to take pleasure in their despair, savoring every moment of their suffering. And just as suddenly as it had appeared, the entity announced that it was leaving. It declared that it was done with the Bell family, but not forever. The witch promised to return one day, though it didn't specify when. "I shall return in 7 years," the witch proclaimed, and with that, the haunting seemingly came to an end. But the Bell Witch's farewell was not the end of the story. The family would never forget the terror they had endured, and neither would anyone who had heard their tale. For in the dark corners of Tennessee, the legend of the Bell Witch lived on, waiting for the day when it would return to haunt the living once more. The curse of the Bell Witch was far from over. And though John Bell was dead, the mystery of his death, the identity of the witch, and the promise of its return would forever linger in the shadows. The story of the Bell Witch did not end with the death of John Bell. The eerie whispers, strange occurrences, and unexplained phenomena left a lasting imprint on the community, and the mystery surrounding the Bell Witch continued to haunt both those who lived in Adams, Tennessee, and those who heard the story far and wide. As decades passed, the question remained, did the Bell Witch truly return? According to some accounts, the Bell Witch did return just as it had promised. In 1821, 7 years after John Bell's death, reports surfaced that the entity reappeared. This time it was said to haunt those who had been closest to the Bell family. The witch allegedly tormented Betsy Bell once more, and those who had witnessed the haunting in the past began to feel its chilling presence once again. Some even claimed that the witch spoke once more, but this time it was not the same voice that had terrorized the Bell family years before. The tone was colder, darker, and more vengeful, as if the spirit had grown more powerful during its absence. However, after a few months, the witch seemed to disappear again, leaving no trace behind. Its return just as mysterious as its original appearance. Whether the Bell Witch truly returned in 1821, or if these reports were merely fueled by local legends, one thing was certain. The promise of its return had become a central part of the legend, and it continues to fuel speculation to this day. One of the most enduring sites linked to the Bell Witch is the Bell Witch Cave, located on the property where the Bell family once lived. Many believe that the cave is a spiritual nexus, a place where the witch's power remains strong. Over the years, the cave has become a tourist attraction for those daring enough to explore it. Visitors report strange experiences while venturing into the cave. Some have claimed to hear disembodied voices, whispers in the darkness, or even the sound of chains dragging along the floor just as the Bell family once did. Others describe a sense of unease or a chilling presence that seems to follow them as they walk through the cave. Despite numerous investigations and attempts to uncover the truth, the Bell Witch Cave remains a mystical and unsettling place. Its eerie atmosphere and the long-standing belief that the witch still haunts the land keep the legend alive. Many locals still avoid the cave, convinced that the spirit of Kate Batts lingers, watching over anyone who dares to disturb her domain. The question of what the Bell Witch truly was remains unanswered to this day. Was it simply the ghost of Kate Batts, a woman who had been wronged in life and sought revenge in death? Or was it something far darker, an ancient curse that had been awakened by the Bell family? Some believe the Bell Witch was not just a spirit, but a demonic force, an entity that had taken on the appearance of Kate Batts to torment the family and spread fear. The nature of the witch's powers is another point of confusion. Could a human spirit really possess the ability to predict the future, imitate voices, and kill a man through mysterious means? Was it possible that something supernatural had crossed into the mortal world, leaving only destruction in its wake? Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the Bell Witch legend is the absence of clear answers. The truth remains elusive, with no one able to explain how a family's tragedy became one of the most documented and terrifying hauntings in history. Whether it was a ghost, a curse, or something darker, the mystery of the Bell Witch continues to captivate and terrify those who seek to understand its power. As time goes on, the story of the Bell Witch endures, its legacy embedded in the folklore of Tennessee and American history. And even now, in the quiet darkness of the Bell Witch Cave, it's said that if you listen closely, you might still hear the faint whispers of a vengeful spirit, waiting, watching, and perhaps still waiting to make its presence known once again. 2 centuries have passed since the Bell Witch first made its terrifying presence known, yet the legend endures. The chilling accounts of the Bell family's torment, the eerie voice of the witch, and the unexplained events that still echo through the pages of history continue to haunt the minds of those who dare to dive into this mystery. But one question remains. Was it real? Was the Bell Witch truly a vengeful spirit, or is it simply one of the greatest supernatural deceptions in history? A tale spun from local folklore, fear, and the unknown. Despite the many testimonies and accounts, the mystery continues to elude concrete answers, leaving us to wonder if the witch was ever truly gone, or if it still lingers in the shadows. Now, it's your turn. What do you think? Do you believe the Bell Witch was a real, malevolent spirit, or was it just a terrifying story crafted by those seeking an explanation for the unexplainable? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your thoughts on this eerie tale. If you love chilling stories like this, filled with mystery, suspense, and the unknown, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for more terrifying tales and unsolved mysteries that will leave you questioning everything. Keep watching, because the truth is always just beyond reach.